This Game Boy hasn't powered on in 2 decades, and today we're bringing it back from the dead. Corroded battery terminals, a busted game cartridge, and who knows what's going on the inside. By the end of this video, we're going to have this 1989 icon fully working again. But here's the twist, we're not just fixing it, we're also testing this modern cartridge to see if I can play Wordle. The Game Boy sold 118 million units. It outlasted competitors with more power and better screens. Why? Because it was simple, portable, and could survive in a war zone. Can it survive this corrosion? On this channel, I bring vintage consoles back to life and make them playable again. So if you're into tech nostalgia and getting your hands dirty, you've come to the right place. Let's pop it open and see how bad the damage really is. Alright, before we dive in, check this out. I've upgraded my toolkit, and yes, I am far too excited about it. This little guy, the TriWing Bit, is basically the key that you need to open old Nintendo stuff. If you've ever tried to open a Game Boy without one, you know the struggle. The original Game Boy, it's built like a tank, but it's surprisingly easy to open up. 6 screws hold the back shell on, 4 here around the edges, and 2 tucked down in the battery compartment. This screw here had succumbed to the corrosion and it completely rusted through. I had to use the manual screwdriver to extract it. With the case screws out, the Game Boy opens up like a clamshell. There's a delicate ribbon cable here that connects the screen to the motherboard, and if you snap it, well, you're going to have a really bad day. Now back to my favourite pastime, removing more screws. At this point, I really feel like Nintendo was just making sure that nobody could ever get inside one of these things. With the back PCB screws out, I grabbed my plastic pry tool to gently work the board loose. It was really stuck, probably from the years of pressure, but with a little bit of patience, it finally popped free. This board only has a few screws, but that means we're going to have to deal with the screw that I've been dreading. After a quick trip to the local hardware store, I came back armed with a screw extractor, ready to take down this rusted little monster. This screw was completely seized. The threads had basically turned into dust. And to make things worse, it was recessed deep into the PCB, so using screw extractor pliers wasn't even an option. I gave it a shot with the extractor drill bit, but no luck. It just wouldn't bite. After a few careful attempts, I decided it was time to escalate, so I swapped to a regular drill bit and drilled the head right off the screw. Look, it's not the prettiest solution, but it worked. Sometimes with old hardware like this, you just have to get a little creative. With that stubborn screw finally out, the next step was tackling the battery terminals, and as you can see, they were seriously crusty. Years of leaking batteries had left them covered in corrosion. Now, battery corrosion usually happens when old batteries leak potassium hydroxide. That's a strong alkaline substance. It reacts with carbon dioxide in the air and forms that white, flaky buildup you've probably all seen before. I pulled the terminals out so we could soak them and clean them properly. For this, I'm going to use CLR. It's a cleaner made to dissolve calcium, lime, and rust deposits. It works like a charm on battery crud too. The CLR makes a very satisfying bubbling sound, and you can see it goes to work straight away. While the battery terminals were soaking, I started cleaning up the rest of the mess. First, I sprayed a little white vinegar into the battery compartment to neutralize any leftover corrosion. Next, I grabbed some isopropyl alcohol, good old IPA, and a cotton tip to clean out the circuit boards. IPA is perfect for this because it evaporates super fast, so it doesn't leave moisture behind that could cause any damage. Plus, it cuts through grime and any old gunk without harming the delicate components. I'm going to use contact cleaner for the dials, switches, and the sockets. Next up was that power socket, which had a bit of corrosion. I gave it a careful clean with some isopropyl alcohol and a brush, but nothing too aggressive. Now for the cartridge slot, which looked clean at first glance, but let's be real. Decades of dust don't just disappear on their own. I hit it with some contact cleaner, then inserted the cartridge a few times to create a bit of friction on those pins. Think of it as like flossing, but for your Game Boy. Now that everything's disassembled, it's bath time. for the Game Boy. Not me. I took the case, the buttons, and all the plastic parts and gave them a good soak in warm, soapy water. Soap and water is the safest way to clean these parts without damaging them, especially the clear plastic. You might be tempted to blast it with IPA, but don't. Using IPA on clear plastics like this can actually cause it to go cloudy or even crack over time. It's weirdly harsh on some old materials, so stick with good old dish soap and a toothbrush. Gentle, sudsy, and way less risky. After a good soak and a rinse in clean water, it was time to dry everything off. I grabbed a microfiber cloth to gently pat down the plastic parts. No scratches, no lint, just nice clean finish. Then I used a handheld air blower to get all the water out of those tight spots, like that speaker grill and the buttonholes. Getting everything dry is just as important as the cleaning. The last thing you want is to trap moisture inside when we put this back together. Last up were the battery contacts. I pulled them out of the CLR soak and the corrosion was basically gone, just some stubborn rust left behind. I gave them a quick spritz with the IPA to rinse them off and to rinse off any leftover cleaner. Then I broke out the hand engraver tool to gently file off that remaining rust. It takes a bit of patience, but it's worth it. They came up clean, shiny, and ready to go. With everything cleaned, dried, and rust-free, it's finally time to put this old Game Boy back together again. Now it's all back together and I've managed to insert all of the buttons and all of the switches. The challenging part now is adding in this delicate ribbon cable. You need to press gently but also firmly to make sure that it gets inserted, but it's super important that you do not cause any damage. Now placing the top shell onto the back shell, we're ready to add the final screws and see if we are successful. This rusted screw was just too far gone, but luckily I've got replacements. Now enjoy the ASMR of the batteries being replaced. Alright, now that this Game Boy is looking fresh, it's time to show some love to this poor old game cartridge. This thing looked like it saw a lot of use back in the 90s. I started by cleaning the outside with some isopropyl alcohol and a cotton tip, just to get rid of the surface dirt. Then I cracked it open to get to the good stuff, the PCB. Honestly, these are built pretty tough, but the contacts definitely needed some help. A little contact cleaner and then some magic eraser to polish up the pins. It's kind of amazing, what looked like a lost cause turned back into a shiny cartridge in under a minute. I buttoned it back up, good as new. Check out those shiny contacts. Now there's only one thing left to do, see if the Game Boy recognizes it. It's all been leading up to this moment, folks. Cartridge is in. Power. Oh, we've got power! Here it comes. We have a working Game Boy. Here it is in all of its glory. Now's the time to find out. Will my working Game Boy play Wordle? Let's get the flash cartridge in and see. Alright, we're loading. That's a very good sign. And here it is. Here comes the loading screen. Game Boy, Wordle, spelt with a Y, no copyright infringement. The program has done an excellent job. The menus are really clear. That's how it's going to show us whether or not we have the correct letters or if they're in the wrong place. I'm going to start with my favourite first guess, the word piano. Not bad. We know there's an N and an O, but they're in a different position. I'm also going to edit out all of my thinking time just so you can see my guesses. Now I stared at the screen for a good 2 minutes before coming up with this guess. As the old saying goes, let's try a gnome. And there it is. I promise you I did not cheat and I was not helped with any artificial intelligence. Yes! To see more videos like this, hit that like button, leave a comment and most of all subscribe. It really helps the little content creators like me. Also check out my channel for other videos and I'll see you all soon.